Welcome to Daily Wisdom, Walking the Path with the Buddha, a podcast shared by David Roylance. This podcast is dedicated to guiding you to completely eliminate the discontent mind and the suffering it causes by attaining enlightenment. Learn and practice the teachings of Gotama Buddha that will guide you to fully attain a peaceful, calm, serene, and content mind with joy. To support this podcast, visit patreon.com/support Buddha or visit buddhadailywisdom.com, where you will discover a full range of courses, retreats, and online learning resources to assist you on the path to enlightenment. Now, here's our teacher to share more.
Sawadee Kap. Hello and welcome to Daily Wisdom, Walking the Path with the Buddha. Today is our Pali Canon and English study group, and we're going to be studying the words of the Buddha. We're going to be studying Volume 6, which is titled The Natural Law of Kamma, and we're going to be exploring chapters 31 through 40. In this program, what we do is I invite people from Zoom to be able to read one of our chapters, and then I'm going to share some teachings on that, and then I'm going to open up to any and all questions that you have, whether you're in Facebook, YouTube, or in Zoom. You can ask questions by putting those into the comment section, or if you're in Zoom, you can electronically raise your hand, unmute your microphone, and ask any and all questions. The way this program works is that students are typically learning the teachings either before or after class through exploring the books, and then they're coming to class in order to get guidance and seek advice on understanding the discourses. So welcome to all of you, whether you're joining for the first time or you're joining regularly. Is there someone in Zoom who would like to volunteer to read this first chapter? Okay. Go ahead, Pat.
Thank you. A great gift. Monks, here a noble disciple, having abandoned the destruction of life, abstains from the destruction of life. By abstaining from the destruction of life, the noble disciple gives to an immeasurable number of beings freedom from fear, hostility, and harm. He himself, in turn, enjoys immeasurable freedom from fear, hostility, and harm. This is the first gift, a great gift, highest of long-standing, traditional, ancient, untainted, and never before tainted, which is not being tainted and will not be tainted, not refused by wise ascetics and Brahmins. This is the stream of merit, stream of the wholesome, nutriment of peacefulness, heavenly, ripening peacefulness, conducive to heaven, that leads to what is aspired for, needed, and agreeable to one's welfare and peacefulness. The other four precepts, which are abstaining from taking of what is not given, abstaining from sexual misconduct, abstaining from lying, and abstaining from consuming intoxicants, substances that cause heedlessness, are repeated with the Buddha's guidance. There are, monks, these 5 gifts, great gifts, highest of long-standing, traditional, ancient, untainted, and never before tainted, which are not being tainted and will not be tainted, not refused by wise ascetics and Brahmins. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Pat. I think this is a great way to talk about this discourse and to teach this particular teaching that the Buddha is teaching, because he's talking about the 5 precepts, of course, but he's describing it as a gift and giving something to other people. Because oftentimes we're motivated to do things for other people, but we're not necessarily motivated to do it for ourselves. But the Buddha is helping you to be able to see both sides of this because of the natural law of Kamma, of cause and effect. Many times when people are learning the 5 precepts, they look at them as rules or commandments, and you guys know that that's not how the Buddha actually taught them. And when you see them in his original words, you can see that it's guidance, helping you to be able to see the wisdom of the natural laws. But then also he's helping you to eliminate craving, anger, and ignorance out of one's own mind. That's what he's doing by helping you to understand the conduct that is part of the 5 precepts. You are reducing and eliminating your harmful conduct towards others, so that at the same time it's eliminating the craving, anger, and ignorance in the mind. But he's talking about it here as like you're giving someone a gift, because you know that when you're eliminating your cravings, desires, attachments that would motivate some of these things that the Buddha is talking about, it can often feel like you're giving up something, right? Like if you're used to drinking wine or beer or things like this, and you learn about the teachings of the Buddha, and your mind is clinging to this flavor and this central desire of the substances, you might think like, oh, I got to give up beer, or I got to give up wine. Where instead, the way that the Buddha is talking about it here is you're actually giving this great gift to other beings. You're giving this gift from freedom of fear, hostility, and harm. And because of that, you're going to receive the same. So, for example, using this one that's the first precept, abandoning the destruction of life, that if you're out there actively trying to kill other beings through craving, anger, and ignorance, then there's going to be certain beings that are experiencing fear. They're going to experience hostility from you, and they're going to experience harm coming to them. But by you choosing not to destroy life and live compassionately for the welfare of all living beings, you're giving many countless beings freedom from having the fear of you of causing destruction of their life or hostility or harm. And of course, if they experience fear, they would be causing it themselves by clinging, but you're allowing them to not experience that because you're not triggering that particular craving, and they're not experiencing that hostility or harm. And it's the same thing that's true for all of these. And because you're actually practicing in this way, the natural law of Kamma is whatever you put out, that's what you experience coming back to you. So if you know through the natural law that you're making wise decisions and you're not causing any harm to any being, then you also are experiencing freedom from fear, hostility, and harm. Because if you were out there actively trying to kill, there'd be beings that are trying to kill you too and kind of cause harm to you, and you'd be experiencing this fear, hostility, and harm. But because you're not putting that out, it's not coming back to you. If you've ever laid awake at night, sleeping in bed, trying to go to sleep, and you were thinking about your day or your week or your month, and you're kind of ruminating about all the harmful behavior that you had at different times during your day, week, or month, you might have had stress or anxiety or obsession where your mind was just churning and churning and churning. But when you choose to not practice these types of things that the Buddha describes in the 5 precepts, and you abandon these things and you refrain from this and restrain the mind, not only are you giving freedom of fear, hostility, and harm to others, but you can easily go to sleep at night knowing that there's no harm that's going to come to you because you haven't been causing harm to others, so therefore harm isn't going to come to you. And this is this great gift that you're giving others, and it's also helping you as well. And like I mentioned, oftentimes people think about giving up things. They don't think about necessarily the impact it's going to cause them. So this is a great way to talk about this discourse, that you're giving this gift to others, and this can maybe be more motivating for someone to actually learn and practice and train their mind to not do the things that the Buddha is talking about with destruction of life, stealing, sexual misconduct, speaking falsehoods, and taking substances that cause heedlessness. So let me know what questions you guys have here on this chapter, seeing the cause and effect between the 5 precepts and what you'll experience as a result, this reduction in your fear, hostility, and harm, and ultimately getting to a point where you can be at ease knowing that you're functioning in a wholesome and wise way. Okay, it looks like Vibhav might have a question. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Teacher David. I was wondering, in the 5 precepts, it talks about, like from the right speech, it only talks about lying and not some of the other factors. So you could be basically not taking any life. You could be not taking what is not given. You're not lying. You're not using substances that cause heedlessness. You're not doing any sexual misconduct. But I mean, then the other factors of, you're not following the other factors of, say, well-spoken speech. But still you have harm coming back to you because you're still causing harm, right? So I was wondering why lying is in the 5 precepts, but other, maybe maybe a more elaborate form of right speech is not there. Maybe just a right speech and not why only lying is such a big part of the 5 precepts.
Yeah, the 5 precepts are to significantly reduce your unwholesome Kamma, And in terms of speech, that's significant unwholesome Kamma, because as you lie, people are going to discover those lies, and they're not going to see you as being trustworthy, reliable, and dependable. And now it's going to strain your relationships, and you're going to have difficult relationships. And not only personally, but professionally too, you wouldn't be able to advance. So this is going to produce significant unwholesome Kamma for you. So the 5 precepts is like a way to really get your arms around your moral conduct in a very short teaching of just the 5 precepts and knock that down significantly. So that's why lying is in there, because the other aspects of speech are also affecting your Kamma, but the lying is coming from craving as well as the other ones too, but it's a real significant one, and it's going to cause difficulties in all parts of your life. And we could say the same thing about harsh speech and stuff like that, but you've got to clean up that craving, and lying is a significant one. And your beings are just going to turn away from you, and you're not even going to necessarily even have people to talk to if you're lying, if you're not telling the truth. Whereas if you're speaking harshly, people will kind of like accept that every once in a while. But with continuous lies, people will tend to move away from you pretty quickly. So this helps you to significantly reduce your pollutions in your unwholesome Kamma.
Yeah, that helps a lot. Thank you.
Yep. Okay, I don't see any questions anywhere else. So we'll go to the next one. Is there someone who would like to read this one, chapter 32?
I can read it.
Okay, go ahead, Vibhav.
Thank you. One is reborn through one's deeds. Monks, beings are the owners of the Kamma, the heirs of the Kamma. They have Kamma as their origin, Kamma as their relative, Kamma as their resort. Whatever Kamma they do, wholesome or unwholesome, they are its heirs. Here, having abandoned the destruction of life, someone abstains from the destruction of life. With the rod and weapon laid aside, dedicated and kindly, he recites compassionate towards all living beings. He does not creep along by body, speech, and mind. His bodily Kamma is straight, his verbal Kamma is straight, his mental Kamma is straight, his destination is straight, his rebirth is straight. But for one with a straight destination and rebirth, I say, there is one of 2 destinations, either the exclusively pleasant heavens or influential families, such as those of affluent Khatiyas, affluent Brahmins, or affluent householders, families that are rich, with great wealth and property, abundant gold and silver, abundant treasures and belongings, abundant wealth and grain. Thus a being is reborn from a being. One is reborn through one's deeds. When one has been reborn, contacts affect one. It is in this way, I say, that beings are the heirs of the Kamma. The Tathagata spoke of taking what is not given, and abandoning of sexual misconduct. The discourse is similar to that of abandoning taking life. He also spoke of the fourfold wholesome conduct of speech and threefold wholesome conduct of mind in the same way. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Vibhav. So here, this first part, you've probably seen this if you've studied the natural law of Kamma with me in the various classes, where the Buddha is basically helping you to see that it's your decisions that lead to Kamma. Remember, Kamma is cause and effect, or action and result. It's the results of your decisions. Wise decisions lead to wholesome Kamma or wholesome results, and unwise decisions lead to unwholesome Kamma or unwholesome results. Nobody can create Kamma for you. And we sometimes joke about this, or at least I used to. And I've heard other people do it in the past. I don't do this anymore, of course, but you might hear people say, don't rub your bad Kamma off on me, or can you give me some of your good Kamma? This is impossible. And that's what the Buddha is helping you to see here, that it's your decisions that lead to any particular result. And then he talks about by eliminating the decisions based in the 5 precepts, that you're not creeping along by body, speech, and mind. What it means to creep along is to basically hide things. If you've ever done this, I'm sure you did, especially when you were a kid and maybe even as an adult, there were certain things that you were doing and involved in that you knew that they were unwise, but you chose to do them anyway, and you kind of tried to hide them from people. right? You didn't want other people to know what it was that you were doing. This is creeping along. This is trying to hide the things that you're actually doing that are unwise. So the Buddha is saying, okay, because this person doesn't creep along, because they are practicing this wholesome moral conduct, and you know that you're practicing wholesome moral conduct, you don't need to creep along. You can just be completely open and upfront about the things that you're involved in. And because of that, your Kamma is straight, meaning that it's wholesome. And because of that, if you end up dying and not experiencing enlightenment and there is rebirth, then your destination is straight. There's going to be a rebirth that is straight, that is not going to be going down into the lower realms. So that's what he's talking about here, is the straight rebirth of where you're born either into the heavenly realm or into influential families, affluent Khattiyas or Brahmin, affluent householders where you're rich with great wealth and property. And this would be a straight rebirth, that you're in the human realm, so you're either being reborn into the human realm or potentially into the heavenly realm. And of course, that's not the ultimate goal, but that's the result of having practiced good, wholesome moral conduct. The way that this all works is it isn't anything mystical or magical. It's that by practicing the 5 precepts, you've reduced your craving, anger, and ignorance in your mind. And that's the causes and conditions that determine your rebirth, whether you are reborn and in what realm and what condition that you're reborn. So with lesser amount of craving, anger, and ignorance in the mind, now an individual's rebirth is going to be straight, is what the Buddha is describing. So here, this is helpful to be able to understand, but of course, you're interested in getting to enlightenment and not experiencing rebirth at all, but at least you understand how by practicing the precepts, it leads to a reduction of pollution in the mind, which if someone's going to be reborn, that leads to an improved rebirth. So let me know what questions you guys have here on this chapter. Okay, I don't see any questions. So this next chapter is actually very similar. It looks like Samantha maybe would like to read this one or has a question. Go ahead, ma'am.
I'll read unless we were going to skip it.
No, we're not going to skip it.
Okay.
You can go ahead and read it.
All right. One is reborn through one's creeping deeds. Monks, I will tell you a discourse of the teachings on creeping. Listen and attend closely. And what, monks, is that discourse of the teachings on creeping? Monks, beings are the owners of their Kamma, the heirs of their Kamma. They have Kamma as their origin, Kamma as their relative, Kamma as their resort. Whatever Kamma they do, wholesome or unwholesome, they are its heirs. Here, someone destroys life. He is murderous, bloody-handed, given to blows and violence, merciless to living beings. He creeps along by body, speech, and mind. His bodily Kamma is crooked. His verbal Kamma is crooked. His mental Kamma is crooked. His destination is crooked. His rebirth is crooked. But for one with a crooked destination and rebirth, I say, there is one of 2 destinations, either the exclusively painful hells or a species of creeping animal. And what are the species of creeping animals? The snake, scorpion, centipede, mongoose, the cat, mouse, owl, and any other animals that creep away when they see people. Thus a being is reborn from a being. One is reborn through one's deeds. When one has been reborn, contacts affect one. It is in this way, I say, that beings are the heirs of their Kamma. The Tathagata spoke of taking what is not given, and engages in sexual misconduct, with similar discourses to that of taking life. He also spoke of the 4-fold misconduct of speech and the 3-fold misconduct of mind in the same way.
All right. Thank you, ma'am. So this is exactly the opposite of the one that we just read. This is actually someone who does creep along. They're actually hiding what it is that they do because they're murderous, they're stealing, they're having sexual misconduct and all these other unwholesome moral conduct. And because they're creeping along and trying to hide what they do, the Buddha is saying that their Kamma is actually crooked. And because their Kamma is crooked, then there's going to be this crooked rebirth. Crooked meaning, unwholesome, leading to the lower realms of either the hell realm or a species of animal that is in the creeping qualities of snake, scorpion, centipede, and so forth. So oftentimes what we experience is in the human realm, a being can be functioning as a human being. Within this human realm, they're functioning as the next being that they're already going to become. And of course, what you're doing here on the path to enlightenment is to shed all of that. But you can have beings in the human realm who are functioning like a hell being, or they're functioning like an animal, or they're functioning like an afflicted spirit, or they're functioning like a heavenly being as well, or they're functioning like a human being, right? So as you get closer and closer to that first stage of enlightenment, you're functioning better and better as a human being. And that's why if you die in the first or second stage of enlightenment, you're going to come back into the human realm. So you can see beings that are in the human realm, but they're functioning as if they are the being in the next realm that they're headed towards. And if they don't do anything to improve the qualities of their mind, they are going to be reborn into that existence. And now they're going to live out those cravings, desires, attachments that they have from that existence so that they can extinguish those cravings from fulfilling them. And now they can fulfill those cravings and potentially experience a better rebirth where their mind has evolved beyond where they were previously. And now maybe they get back to the human realm or the heavenly realm and they potentially get to enlightenment. So let me know what questions you guys have here. Looks like Samantha has a question. Go ahead, ma'am.
Thank you. I'm just wondering how a being, an animal specifically, overcomes natural instincts to, to kill or, to reproduce or whatnot, in order to produce good Kamma for a better rebirth? Or is that why being an animal is so difficult to be reborn into a higher realm? Because, so much of an animal, it seems like, is not really dependent on, I'll say free will, but a lot of it is instinctual, just from their makeup. So how do they overcome that?
Sure. So being in the animal realm, it is like a prison. It's very difficult to get out, but obviously they can get out. It takes many rebirths in the animal realm, and it means that they need to bounce around, right? So like a tiger, it's very rare that a tiger or a lion is going to come right into the human realm, for example. It can happen, but it's unlikely. And that's why they will bounce around many, many times until eventually maybe they get to a rabbit or a turtle or an elephant where they're not experiencing as much hostility and they don't need to necessarily rely on killing in order to be able to sustain their life. So they do have free will. There's instincts that they have and there's certain needs that they have in order to sustain their life, but it's still their free will. Those animals are still having free will and choosing to do the things that they're doing, but they're doing it as a part of survival. And now, as part of that, they have a difficult time because their mind still maintains so much craving, anger, and ignorance. And now if they get to a better animal existence, like a rabbit or something like this, where they're not really killing in order to sustain their life, that's going to help them to be able to improve the condition of the mind and then ultimately get to a better existence, to maybe come into a human existence or something else.
Okay, I'm not sure how an animal has free will about killing without knowing like what their thought process is. Like how can let's say a scorpion think, okay, well, I could have some grass or I could eat another insect. Mm-hmm. And it's better off if I eat the grass. Like, it doesn't seem like animals really have that ability to have the thought process to actually make a decision.
They are making a decision. That's what it means to have free will, that you're making a decision. It doesn't necessarily mean that you're making an intelligent decision or one that you've contemplated or one that you've had discernment about. That's what you're talking about, is you're thinking about more like intellectual reflection and discernment. But what free will means is just that you're making a decision at your own volition, your own intention. So a scorpion is intending to go over there and kill that frog or whatever it is, that spider, in order to eat it. That is its intention. It's doing so because it needs to sustain its life. but it is a free will decision. And they don't have the capability to even fathom, and they wouldn't be able to even survive by eating something like grass or a tomato or something like that. They probably couldn't survive if they were eating those types of things. But at the end of the day, it is a free will choice, meaning that they've chosen to do that based in their own choices. Nobody forced them to do that. But because of the type of being that they are doing that because that's all they know in that particular existence. And that's why they need to extinguish the Kamma related to that existence so that they can get to a better existence, like maybe a rabbit or a squirrel or something like this, where they're not killing. And now they have less of that in their mind, less craving, less anger, less ignorance, and now they can potentially move on from there.
Okay, thank you. The distinction with discernment makes a lot of difference. Thank you.
Yeah, and one thing you mentioned at the first part of your question previously was about sexual aspects. Animals aren't really so versed in being able to extinguish their sexual craving. They tend to have a significant amount of sexual craving, and that's why even when we come into the human world, we tend to have a significant amount of sexual craving. Not everybody, of course, and not all animals have sexual craving. There's some animals that aren't interested in having sex because that's impermanence. But in the animal world, there's an extensive amount of craving for sex. And that's why by the time beings get into the human realm, we see something similar. Beings who have maybe been in the human realm before and maybe extinguished some of their sexual craving, or maybe beings that have been in the heavenly realm and have extinguished some of that. When they're born into the human realm, they don't have as much sexual craving, or maybe none at all. But human beings tend to have a significant amount in general, but of course not everybody. And so that's where in the human realm we have the capability to intellectually understand that and then really truly work on extinguishing it, where in the animal realm they don't do that because they don't have the same level of ability to develop their mind.
Okay, thank you. That was a terrific answer. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Okay, I don't see any questions anywhere else. So let's go to the next one. This is chapter 34. Is there someone who would like to read this? Looks like Pat again. Go ahead, sir.
At minimum, leads to deeds. Monks, the destruction of life, repeatedly pursued, developed, and cultivated, leads to hell, to the animal realm, and to the realm of afflicted spirits. For one reborn as a human being, the destruction of life at minimum leads to a short lifespan. Taking what is not given, repeatedly pursued, developed, and cultivated, leads to hell, to the animal realm, and to the realm of afflicted spirits. For one reborn as a human being, taking what is not given at minimum leads to loss of wealth. Sexual misconduct, repeatedly pursued, developed, and cultivated, leads to hell, to the animal realm, and to the realm of afflicted spirits. For one reborn as a human being, sexual misconduct at minimum leads to hostility and competition. False speech, repeatedly pursued, developed, and cultivated, leads to hell, to the animal realm, and to the realm of afflicted spirits. For one reborn as a human being, false speech at minimum leads to false accusations. Argumentative speech, repeatedly pursued, developed, and cultivated, leads to hell, to the animal realm, and to the realm of afflicted spirits. For one reborn as a human being, argumentative speech at minimum leads to being separated from one's friends. Harsh speech, repeatedly pursued, developed, and cultivated, leads to hell, to the animal realm, and to the realm of afflicted spirits. For one reborn as a human being, harsh speech at minimum leads to disagreeable sounds. Idle chatter, repeatedly pursued, developed, and cultivated, leads to hell, to the animal realm, and to the realm of afflicted spirits. For one reborn as a human being, idle chatter at minimum leads to others distrusting one's words. Drinking liquor and wine, ingestion of substances that cause heedlessness, repeatedly pursued, developed, and cultivated, leads to hell, to the animal realm, and to the realm of afflicted spirits. For one reborn as a human being, drinking liquor and wine at minimum leads to madness. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Pat. So I think this is a great discourse to help you see how the Buddha isn't using anything about the natural law of Kamma as a way to guilt, shame, and fear somebody into learning and practicing his teachings, because sometimes that's what people feel like when you're talking about things like what the Buddha's talking about here. This is a very rare type of discourse where he's taking a certain decision that an individual makes on a repeated basis, and then he's showing you the outcome after this particular life. This is very rare that you see the Buddha talking about this. Remember, the Buddha was completely peaceful and joyful. He'd already gotten to this enlightened mental state, and he was just helping people to understand what it took for him to get to that mental state. So if they were interested in understanding and getting to that mental state, okay, he'll teach it to them. And if not, then he won't teach it to them, right? He's completely peaceful either way. So he's explaining this natural law in just kind of like a matter of a fact way, right? Like monks, the destruction of life, repeatedly pursued, developed, and cultivated, leads to hell, to the animal realm, to the realm of afflicted spirits. For one reborn as a human being, the destruction of life at minimum leads to a short lifespan. Instead of, something that's kind of doom and gloom and, kind of maybe arising some guilt or shame or fear in your mind, he just explains it very clear and very straightforward. And he's talking about rebirth here, and that's what this types of things lead to. But you can independently verify this because these things actually occur within this life too. If you're repeatedly doing these things, you'll experience these same things, not just in a future life, but you'll experience these things in this life too. So for example, if somebody was regularly and repeatedly destroying life, then there's going to be beings that are coming after you to actually kill you. And that means that you're going to have a shortened lifespan. One of the things I think about here is like if an individual went off to war and battle, and maybe they're 18, 20, 22 years old, and they're repeatedly killing and killing and killing, and now you're very likely to have a short lifespan yourself, right? Or you can look at like serial murderers who are regularly killing, and they end up maybe even getting caught and going to jail, and now they end up getting killed while they're in jail, right? And you can go through each one of these if you've done any of these kinds of things, or if you've known people who've done these kinds of things, and you can see that, yeah, this is exactly what you experienced. Like, for example, if you've had any sexual misconduct in your life, where maybe you were going out and having sex with people behind the back of other people, maybe you're in a relationship and you're going outside that relationship, there was this hostility, maybe in competition. Same thing with like argumentative speech. If you've had argumentative speech, you can see that this has led to you being separated from your friends, because when you were argumentative, that you experienced that. And then I'll just jump down here for all of us who have experienced drinking liquor and wine and substances that cause heedlessness. Yep, it absolutely led to madness. That's exactly what you experience. And this is how you take what the Buddha taught and you independently verify these things, because he's talking about future life. Sure, maybe you're not able to verify that aspect of it at this time, but you can verify it right now based on what you're experiencing in this life, if you've ever done any of these things or if you've known people that have. And now what you do with a discourse like this is you aim to improve your practice to the point where you're not doing these things, and that way you won't experience these things. And this is where life just becomes more and more peaceful, because you understand the causes and conditions that lead to madness, or that lead to a shortened lifespan, or that lead to hostility or being separated from your friends. You understand those things that lead to that. So when you understand the cause, then you'll stop doing that so that you no longer experience the effect. It's like if you were walking down the beach and wind was blowing in your face and you were kicking up the sand and the sand's blowing in your face, and you're just like, you don't really know why that's occurring. You don't know how it's occurring. You're not sure of the reasons why this is occurring. You'd probably just keep walking down the beach, kicking up sand, being oblivious to what's actually causing this. But once you understand, oh my goodness, it's me kicking up sand that is causing the sand to blow in my face, now you stop doing that because you don't like the sand blowing back in your face. So we oftentimes don't understand these things, right? So like when we were being led to be separated from our friends, when we were arguing with our friends, and maybe we ended up having a damaged relationship and people went away from us, in our minds, we probably thought we are right, they're wrong. We were blaming them for the things that we are experiencing. We thought that we were so right and our anger was justified and how dare they treat us like this. So when they go away from us, even though we had argumentative speech and harsh speech, we just kind of blamed them for what happened. And we were like, yeah, thank goodness that person's out of my life, right? But then when we start learning these causes and conditions, the natural law of Kamma, we're like, oh, I see what's going on. It's my own mind that's causing this. And it's my own mind that's causing this harsh and argumentative speech. And that's what's actually leading to these broken relationships. So you know what? Let me stop doing that. Let me eliminate these decisions from my life. And that's where I talk about, if there's anything that's going on in your life that you would rather not occur, all you need to do is cultivate wisdom, make different decisions, and you'll experience different results. And that's what the Buddha is helping you to be able to see here. And while, again, he's talking about future lives, you can apply this to your current life too and independently verify it, and then make decisions to no longer choose to do these types of things. And that's going to help you to reduce and eliminate your craving, anger, and ignorance. So let me know what questions you guys have here. So it looks like Vibhav might have a question. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Teacher David. I had a question on the first part, like short lifespan, because one is pursuing destruction of life. So in some cases that you describe it is kind of clearer to see, like soldiers going into battle, that you're more likely to get killed because you're trying to kill other people and you're in battle. In other cases, for me it's hard to kind of wrap my head around. Specifically, I think some of the examples you've given around like lifespan of animals who are who eat meat and who don't eat meat. So you've given some examples of, like, say, elephants or which have a higher lifespan. But there are other, like, animals like cows or rabbits. Like rabbits has a very short lifespan. It doesn't eat meat, but it has a short lifespan. And like cows also have like a similar lifespan as like a lion. And so I'm wondering how. And I was also looking at just before the class I was looking at animals who live long, and there's like a shark that lives like 200 or 300 years, maybe more. So I was wondering how to kind of reconcile that. That's a trouble I'm having. That's one, and the second part is also like things like people like who don't like necessarily kill like human beings, but who deal in meat, like butchers, or in some countries, like Rachel was talking about how in Vietnam they were basically like kill like cats and dogs as well in northern Vietnam, I think she was saying. And they like keep them in cages and then they kill them for meat and stuff. So if you don't deal in like killing humans, but you deal in meat like butchers and like meat is very prevalent, how does that reconcile to the short lifespan? That I think that's part is not super clear to me. I'm not able to wrap my head around it.
Okay, so this is where your mind keeps thinking that everybody's going to experience Kamma in exactly the same way, in precisely the same way. You need to remember the discourse on the lump of salt and understand that each being experiences Kamma differently. They can do the same exact thing and experience it differently. That's what the Buddha is talking about. But what your mind's thinking, and it's been thinking this way for a long time, is that everybody's going to experience things exactly the same way. And that's your mind's thinking of permanence rather than seeing the impermanent nature of how Kamma is experienced based on the deeds that you've done, not only in this life, but previous lives as well.
Okay, so that's the only way I guess that part makes sense. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I guess I was applying this to literally the short lifespan.
Yeah, you've got to stop thinking about it as everybody's going to experience Kamma in exactly the same way. You've got to remember that discourse on the lump of salt. That's what's going to help you to be able to verify what the Buddha is teaching here, and then rectify why is it that this shark is able to live for 200 years, but this rabbit is living for a shorter time frame, because Kamma is experienced differently by different beings because the variables are different.
So I guess then how I guess the short lifespan, like how does a short lifespan take effect into, I guess maybe rephrase my question. Like how do you think about how should one think about like using this discoursing if one like repeatedly pursues destruction of life, then their lifespan will be short. How does like someone use this discourse to like then think about
The way that
the effect of karma?
the way that you can use this discourse is to eliminate all these things that the Buddha is talking about. That's how you can use this discourse. And then you can use this discourse to understand why beings experience what they experience. So that rabbit that is experiencing a short lifespan, they could have easily been a tiger or a lion in their previous life, or they could have been a shark in their previous life where they were killing regularly, or maybe they were a human being where they were killing regularly, and now they're reborn into the life as a rabbit where they're having a short lifespan, right? So you use these discourses to be able to help you see the wholesome qualities to cultivate and the unwholesome qualities to eliminate. That's how you would like to use these. And then you can independently verify the things that the Buddha is sharing, and helps you to be able to understand why the world functions the way that it does. So oftentimes, like say you have a human being who's 2 years old, 3 years old, and they die of cancer, and then people are really upset about that, right? And again, the natural law of Kamma isn't about blame and fault. It's not about that. But when we see that little 2-year-old child that dies, or that 3-year-old child that dies, then what we can come to understand is most likely what occurred is in their previous life, they might have done a significant amount of killing. And now they're in this life, and this is why there's a shorter lifespan. It's not absolute, because that's not the way the natural law of Kamma works and functions, but that's a potential. And now we can understand why beings experience what they experience, and we start to understand the world better, instead of being sad and, oh my gosh, that 2-year-old child, 3-year-old child died. We can understand that, okay, this is part of the natural law. This is what's actually has occurred, and now we don't have to be upset. We can just understand the world is working exactly the way the Buddha described it to work.
That really helps a lot. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. You're welcome. All right. So we have a question coming in here on YouTube. Let's see. This individual is asking, Teacher David, could the repeated destruction of life be interpreted as eating animals? Thank you, Zoe. So when you're eating animals, you are contributing to the destruction of life. That is true. And you are experiencing unwholesome Kamma there. And it will shorten your lifespan because it's going to produce more sickness in the body. There's some people who have eaten meat and they've actually died. I actually had a girlfriend that experienced this. When I was 16 years old, she was 18. And when we ate out, she ate at one restaurant and ate meat, and I ate at another restaurant and I wasn't vegetarian or vegan at the time, but I didn't eat the same thing that she ate, and she ended up dying from E. coli bacteria. Right? This is how people experience that. So, she experienced a short lifespan. She died at the age of 18 or 19, right? And this is from those types of decisions. So, yeah, this is why getting to a plant-based food supply, you're going to experience improved health, and you're going to have better health in the body. And this would be wise for somebody to work towards that, understanding that they may need to eat some amount of animal products at some point, or they might need to look at supplements and things like this in order to be able to transition over to that. But that's part of the natural law. And that's one of the big misunderstandings here in Thailand and in other parts of the Buddhist world, that they think that it's only the person who's killing the animal that's experiencing the unwholesome Kamma. That being is experiencing a significant amount of unwholesome Kamma, but even the person who's eating it is experiencing it too by way of sickness in the body. Okay, I don't see any questions anywhere else. So let's go to the next one. All right, so this is chapter 35. Is there someone who would like to read this one? Okay, Samantha, go ahead, ma'am.
Indebtedness is discontentedness in the world. Poverty is called discontentedness in the world. So too is getting into debt. A poor person who becomes indebted is troubled while enjoying himself. When they prosecute him and he incurs imprisonment, this imprisonment is indeed discontentedness for one yearning for gain and sensual pleasures. Just so, in the noble one's discipline, one in whom confidence is lacking, who sees no danger in wrongdoing and brash, heaps up a mass of evil, unwholesome Kamma. Having engaged in misconduct by body, speech, and mind, he forms the wish, may no one find out about me. He twists around with his body, by speech or mind, he piles up his evil, unwholesome deeds in one way or another, repeatedly. This unwise evildoer, knowing his own misdeeds, is a poor person who falls into debt, troubled while enjoying himself. His thoughts then prosecute him. Painful mental states born of remorse follow him wherever he goes, whether in the village or the forest. This unwise evildoer, knowing his own misdeeds, goes to a certain animal realm or is even bound in hell. This indeed is the discontentedness of bondage.
All right, thank you, Samantha. So when we're making unwise decisions about our moral conduct, this is like getting into debt, because whatever unwise moral conduct that you put out, that's producing unwholesome Kamma. And now you're going to need to experience that. So that's what the Buddha is helping you to be able to see here. And he's using this analogy because people typically understand getting into debt and money, right? So that's the same thing that's happening when you're making unwise decisions about your moral conduct. And that's why once the Buddha taught right view and the Four Noble Truths, helping you see it's your own mind that's causing these discontent feelings, he would move right into teaching people moral conduct. Oftentimes nowadays, people are focused on meditation a lot, but the Buddha didn't do that. He actually taught people moral conduct first, because why would you go clean up the mess on the ground when you've got all this oil that you're spewing all over the world? You've got to shut down the oil pipe. So when you're actually producing unwholesome Kamma through your moral conduct, it's like spewing oil all over the world. Well, you're not going to go clean up the mess on the floor. You're going to shut down the oil pipe. So if you shut down your unwise moral conduct, that gives you an ability to now go clean up the mess, because you're now choosing to no longer do those unwise things. So it's very important to focus on moral conduct. Oftentimes people think that the Buddha sat under a tree, he meditated, and instantly got to enlightenment. And because of that, people will tend to be very heavy in their meditation practice, doing a lot of meditation, 8, 9, 10, 12 hours of meditation, completely ignoring the moral conduct and not realizing why that's important. That maybe they get up from their meditation after 12 hours and they go outside and they're bitter, harsh, and hostile with people. They're not anywhere close to enlightenment. They're still producing significant amounts of unwholesome Kamma. So it's really important to focus on your moral conduct and tweak that every single day. When the Buddha talked about a simple way to practice his teachings on a daily basis, he mentioned to focus on generosity on a daily basis, to focus on improving your moral conduct on a daily basis, and meditation as well. So here he's helping you to be able to see this in terms of debtedness, that you're in debt. And now you're going to pay that debt, because in this life, you're going to experience the unwholesome Kamma coming back to you. And if there's rebirth, that means there's going to be more unwholesome Kamma in the future to deal with. But instead, you'd like to get debt free. I don't know if you guys are actually debt free with finances. You know, there is such thing as good debt and bad debt, so to speak. But if you've gotten free of all your quote unquote bad debt, it's like a burden is lifted off your shoulders. I remember when I was like 26 years old or 27, 28, I got free of debt, and it was like a burden got lifted off my shoulders. It felt so freeing. The same thing is true when you're choosing to practice good, wholesome moral conduct. It's so freeing that your mind is free, because you know you're not causing any harm and there's no harm coming back to you. So let me know what questions you guys have here on this chapter. Okay, I don't see any questions anywhere. So now we'll go to the next chapter. Is there someone who would like to read this one, chapter 36? Okay, we got 2 here. I'll just take the one at the top. That's Samantha. We got 3 people.
4 kinds of persons. At Savatthi, the perfectly enlightened one then said to King Pasenadi of Kosala, "Great king, there are these 4 kinds of persons found existing in the world." What 4? The one heading from darkness to darkness, the one heading from darkness to light, the one heading from light to darkness, and the one heading from light to light. And how, great king, is a person one heading from darkness to darkness? Here some person has been reborn in a low family, a family of kandalas, bamboo workers, hunters, cartwrights, or waste collectors, a poor family in which there is little food and drink, and which subsists with difficulty, one where food and clothing are obtained with difficulty. And he is unsightly, deformed, chronically blind, or cripple-handed, or lame, or paralyzed. He is not one who gains food, drink, clothing, and vehicles, garlands, scents, and ointments, bedding, housing, and lighting. He engages in misconduct of body, speech, and mind. Having done so, with the breakup of the body after death, he is reborn in the plane of misery, in a bad destination, in the netherworld, in hell. Suppose, great king, a man would go from darkness to darkness, or from gloom to gloom, or from stain to stain. This person, I say, is exactly similar. It is in this way, great king, that a person is one heading from darkness to darkness. And how, great king, is a person one heading from darkness to light? Here some person has been reborn in a low family, a family of kandalas, bamboo workers, hunters, cartwrights, or waste collectors, a poor family in which there is little food and drink, and which subsists with difficulty, one where food and clothing are obtained with difficulty, and he is ugly, unsightly, deformed, chronically blind, or cripple-handed, or lame, or paralyzed. He is not one who gains food, drink, clothing, and vehicles, garlands and scents, and ointments, bedding, housing, and lighting. He engages in wholesome conduct of body, speech, and mind. Having done so, with the breakup of the body after death, he is reborn in a good destination, in a heavenly world. Suppose, great king, a man would climb from the ground onto a palanquin, or from a palanquin onto horseback, or from horseback to an elephant mount, or from an elephant mount to a mansion. This person, I say, is exactly similar. It is in this way, great king, that a person is one headed from darkness to light. And how, great king, is a person one heading from light to darkness? Here some person has been reborn in a high family, an affluent Khattiya family, an affluent Brahmin family, or an affluent householder family, one which is rich, with great wealth and property, with abundant gold and silver, abundant treasures and commodities, abundant wealth and grain. And he is handsome, attractive, graceful, possessing supreme beauty of complexion. He is one who gains food, drink, clothing, and vehicles, garlands, scents, and ointments, bedding, housing, and lighting. He engages in misconduct of body, speech, and mind. Having done so, with the breakup of the body after death, he is reborn in the plane of misery, and in a bad destination, in the netherworld, in hell. Suppose, great king, a man would descend from a mansion to an elephant mount, or from an elephant mount to horseback, or from horseback to a palanquin, or from a palanquin to the ground, or from the ground to underground darkness. This person, I say, is exactly similar. It is in this way, great king, that a person is one heading from light to darkness. And how, great king, is a person one heading from light to light? Here some person has been reborn in a high family, an affluent Khattiya family, an affluent Brahmin family, or an affluent householder family, one which is rich, with great wealth and property, with abundant gold and silver, abundant treasures and commodities, with abundant wealth and grain. And he is handsome, attractive, graceful, possessing supreme beauty of complexion. He is one who gains food, drink, clothing, and vehicles, garlands, scents, and ointments, bedding, housing, and lighting. He engages in wholesome conduct of body, speech, and mind. Having done so, with the breakup of the body after death, he is reborn in a good destination, in a heavenly world. Suppose, great king, a man would cross over from palanquin to palanquin, or from horseback to horseback, or from elephant mount to elephant mount, or from mansion to mansion. This person, I say, is exactly similar. It is in this way, great king, that a person is one heading from light to light. These, great king, are the 4 kinds of persons found existing in the world.
All right. Thank you, Samantha. So this is a great discourse for people to be able to understand that no matter where you're born, you can be headed in any particular direction. Because during the lifetime of the Buddha, when people were born into certain families, they thought they were kind of destined for a certain type of life. If you're born into a family who has less resources or more resources, they expected that you were going to kind of stay in that type of lifestyle. But what the Buddha was helping people to see is that no, it's based on the decisions that you make that is going to lead to any particular result that you experience. So here he's showing how you can be moving from darkness to darkness, darkness to light, light to darkness, and light to light. And he's giving examples of, day-to-day activities that people would understand and explain that in terms of moral conduct and how you can be progressing towards enlightenment or you could be going away from enlightenment. So one of the quotes that I usually share, and you probably have seen this in the book and on the posters and stuff, is that we are all either walking towards the darkness or towards the light. Which direction you walk is your choice. And that's what the Buddha is teaching you here, is that it's your choice of which way you're actually going to walk. And of course, if you were born into a family that lacked resources, you would like to walk towards the light, right? And if you were born to a family that has a significant amount of resources, you would like to continue to walk towards the light. But oftentimes that's not the case, right? Like people might walk towards the darkness. If they were born with a family with low resources, they might actually walk deeper into that darkness. Or if you're born with more resources, you might be walking towards the darkness, right? So you would like to walk towards the light no matter where you were born. And walking towards the light is to cultivate wisdom, to make wise decisions about your moral conduct, body, speech, and mind. And that's what's going to help improve the condition of your mind in your life. So let me know what questions you guys have here on this chapter. Okay, I don't see any questions anywhere. So now we'll move to the next chapter. And it looks like Pat would like to read this one. This is chapter 37. This is actually the Eightfold Path. As you know, Pat, I'm not going to teach this, but I'll let you read the next one. So normally this is titled the Eightfold Path, because that's the core central teaching of the Buddha, and that's what we refer to it as. This chapter, because it's in the book of the Natural Law of Kamma, it's titled differently. It's titled, a path to attain the ending of unwholesome Kamma, because that's what you're doing through this Eightfold Path. By learning and practicing this Eightfold Path, you're extinguishing all your unwholesome Kamma. So here, if you guys have any questions on the Eightfold Path, you're more than welcome to be able to ask me those. Below this, we've got some other discourses that we can read. Pat, if you'd like to read these are kind of giving more details here in order to be able to kind of, plug into the Eightfold Path and give more detail about specific aspects of the Eightfold Path. Here, we've got details on the 5 precepts, which you guys have probably studied before. But then down here, we've got some about right action, so we can talk about these teachings here. So if you'd like to read this, let me know.
Right action twofold. And what, monks, is right action? Right action, I say, is twofold. There is right action that is affected by taints, production of merit, ripening on the side of attachment, and there is right action that is noble, taintless, world-transcending, a factor of the path. And what, monks, is right action that is affected by taints, production of merit, ripening on the side of attachment? Abstaining from killing living beings, abstaining from taking what is not given, abstaining from misconduct and sensual pleasures. This is right action that is affected by taints, production of merit, ripening on the side of attachment. And what, monks, is right action that is noble, taintless, world-transcending, a factor of the path? The elimination from the 3 kinds of bodily misconduct, the abstaining, refraining, abstaining from them in one whose mind is noble, whose mind is taintless, who possesses the noble path and is developing the noble path. This is right action that is noble, taintless, world-transcending, a factor of the path. Did you
Okay.
want me to stop here or to keep going?
Yeah, let's stop here, but I'll pick it up after this. So, with his moral conduct, there's two folds, meaning two levels of purification. With right speech in the Eightfold Path, we've got that first level of purification, which is refraining from lying, slander, harsh speech, and frivolous speech. That's the first fold of purification. But then you go deeper into this. I've never seen him call it the second fold in terms of speech, but we might think about it that way because we've got the 5 factors of well-spoken speech, where you speak at the proper time, what you say is true, gentle, beneficial, and with a mind of loving kindness. Well, now you're seeing that with right action here as well, that there's these two levels of purification. The first level is just abstaining from killing, stealing, and sexual misconduct. Misconduct in sensual pleasures, that's the sexual misconduct, right? So there's still attachment there because your mind isn't fully purified yet. So it's when you go beyond this, that your mind is fully purified, that you're now practicing fully the second fold of purification as it relates to right action, where you don't have any of the taints involved, any of the 10 fetters, none of those are involved in terms of your actions. So you need to kind of get your arms around a first fold first, because there's a lot of work to get to that, but then there's all this fine tuning of the mind that needs to happen. And there's the same thing related to this right livelihood as well. So we'll talk about this. There's two folds of purification here. So if you'd like to go ahead and read this, Pat, we can talk about it.
Sure. Trades not to be plied, wrong livelihood. Monks, a household practitioner should not engage in these 5 trades. What 5? Business in weapons, business in living beings, business in meat, business in substances that cause heedlessness, and business in poisons. A household practitioner should not engage in these 5 trades. And what, monks, is wrong livelihood? Scheming, flattery, hinting, belittling, pursuing gain with gain, that is wrong livelihood. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Pat. So here, this is the first fold of purification as it relates to your livelihood, that you eliminate business and weapons, living being, meat, substances that cause heedlessness, and poisons, as well as eliminating slander, flattery, hinting, belittling, pursuing gain with gain. And I teach this when I describe the Eightfold Path in detail. That's the first fold of purification. And very similarly to what we just read with right action, the second fold of purification for one's livelihood is making sure that the taints or the fetters aren't involved in your livelihood. So for example, you could have eliminated business in any of these particular 5: weapons, living beings, meat, substances that cause heedlessness, and poisons, and you may not be doing any of these things, but you haven't fully purified your livelihood because your ego is still involved. You still have conceit when you're at work, for example, right? So that's not a fully purified livelihood yet, because you're walking around with a chip on your shoulder, your chest is all puffed out, and now that's going to produce unwholesome results for you in your livelihood. You haven't fully purified that yet. And maybe you're just holding on to that livelihood for the reasons of conceit. So in order to get to a fully purified livelihood, not only do you need to eliminate these 2 things here, which is the first fold of purification, but you need to eliminate any of the taints being arising while you're performing your livelihood. And you need to do that for an extended period of time, and that's what's going to purify your livelihood. You'll find this in volume 12, chapter 14. That's where you'll find what I just described. Here it doesn't have that, but when we get to volume 12, chapter 14, you'll see the Buddha talk about eliminating the taints as it applies to your livelihood and making sure that you're not practicing with any pollutions of the fetters during your livelihood. So let me know what questions you guys have here, either on the Eightfold Path or right action or right livelihood, since we're really kind of exploring these as part of this. So it looks like Vibhav has a question. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Teacher David. I guess the question I have here is that this is saying that, and you're saying that all the 10 fetters have to be eliminated to attain the second level of purification, second fold of purification.
Yes.
So that means then only an enlightened being can attain that.
Can attain what?
Like the second level of or second fold of purification on both right action and right livelihood?
Not necessarily.
There was what you said, but this means, I mean, this is saying that you have to eliminate the 10 fetters while undertaking any action or livelihood for pursuing those two, right? If you have any of the fetters still involved, then you have not achieved that level of purification.
Yes, that's true as it relates to right action, but not right livelihood. Because someone can actually purify their livelihood where they're not functioning with any type of taints or fetters involved there, but they're still showing up in other parts of their practice and other parts of their life.
Okay, so the right action, second fold of purification of right action can only be achieved by an enlightened being.
Right. So that's why that third fetter of wrong behavior and observances, it's only the first fold of purification that you need in order to eliminate that fetter. But then in terms of actually getting to enlightenment, there's still work to be done on your actions, your speech, your actions, and potentially your livelihood as well. Depending, your livelihood's unique because some people can actually get to a point where they're fully functioning in a right livelihood. There's no fetters involved in their livelihood whatsoever, but it's showing up in their personal life.
Okay, thank you. That helps.
Yep. Okay. I don't see any questions anywhere else. So we'll go to the next one. Let's see. Is there someone who would like to read chapter 38? Okay. I'll just take Vibhav at the top. Go ahead, sir.
With the destruction of craving comes the destruction of unwholesome karma. Monks, develop the path and the way that leads to the destruction of craving. And what is the path and the way that leads to the destruction of craving? It is the 7 factors of enlightenment. What 7? The enlightenment factor of mindfulness, the enlightenment factor of investigation, the enlightenment factor of energy, the enlightenment factor of joy, the enlightenment factor of tranquility, the enlightenment factor of concentration, the enlightenment factor of equanimity. When this was said, the Venerable Udai asked the perfectly enlightened one, Venerable Sir, how are the 7 factors of enlightenment developed and cultivated so that they lead to the destruction of craving? Here, Udai, a monk develops the enlightenment factor of mindfulness, which is based upon seclusion, freedom from strong feelings and elimination, maturing in release, which is immense, superb, measureless, without ill will. When he develops the enlightenment factor of mindfulness, which is based upon seclusion, freedom from strong feelings and elimination, maturing in release, which is immense, superb, measureless, without ill will, craving is abandoned. With the abandoning of craving, unwholesome karma is abandoned. With the abandoning of unwholesome karma, discontentedness is abandoned. All of the 7 factors of enlightenment are explained in the same way to include the enlightenment factor of investigation, energy, joy, tranquility, and concentration, with the final fact being described in the same way as in the below. He develops the enlightenment factor of equanimity, which is based upon seclusion, freedom from strong feelings and elimination, maturing in release, which is immense, superb, measureless, without ill will. When he develops the enlightenment factor of equanimity, which is based upon seclusion, freedom from strong feelings and elimination, maturing in release, which is immense, superb, measureless, without ill will, craving is abandoned. With the abandoning of craving, unwholesome karma is abandoned. With the abandoning of unwholesome karma, discontentedness is abandoned. Thus, Udai, with the destruction of craving comes the destruction of unwholesome karma. With the destruction of unwholesome karma comes the destruction of discontentedness. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Vibhav. So, as we talked earlier, it's the Eightfold Path that is leading to the complete elimination of all unwholesome karma. That's what you're practicing. but it's not that alone. There's other teachings that integrate into it. So you need the 7 factors of enlightenment, particularly as you've been practicing the Eightfold Path very closely for an extended period of time, because your mind's going to be swinging a bit and you're going to need to fine tune your mind. And that's where the 7 factors of enlightenment come in. They're going to help you to really stomp it out 100%. Of getting rid of the craving, anger, and ignorance in the mind. So one of the ways that I think about this is like wringing out a rag, that if you had a wet rag, you try to get every last little drop out of it. It's the same thing, where the Eightfold Path is kind of that initial, kind of getting as much out of the mind as you can. Well, you need to come in and fine tune it with the 7 factors of enlightenment. So I've taught these before in this program and taught them at other times. If you guys have questions on them, let me know. There's the 7 factors where there's mindfulness, which is awareness of mind. It's the same mindfulness from the Eightfold Path where you're developing the 4 foundations of mindfulness, being aware of the bodily sensations, the feelings, the condition of the mind, and the mental objects. And then you've got investigation, energy, and joy, which is lifting the mind out of sluggishness and bringing it to the middle. And then you've got the tranquility, concentration, and equanimity that's bringing the mind out of that excited state into the middle. So if you need help on any of these, let me know and I will help you. Okay, I don't see any questions. So now we go to the next one, which is chapter 39. Is there someone who would like to read this? Okay, Samantha.
Seems similar to the last one I did. Anyone can produce nibbana, enlightenment. And what Ananda are the 6 classes? 1. Here someone of the black class produces a black state. Someone of the black class produces a white state. Someone of the black class produces nibbana, which is neither black nor white. Then someone of the white class produces a black state. Someone of the white class produces a white state. And someone of the white class produces nibbana, which is neither black nor white. And how is it, Ananda, that someone of the black class produces a black state? Here someone has been reborn in a low family, a family of kandalas, hunters, bamboo workers, cart makers, or waste collectors, one that is poor with little food and drink, that subsists with difficulty, where food and clothing are obtained with difficulty, and he is ugly, unsightly, ill-proportioned, and with much illness, blind, crippled, lame, or paralyzed. He does not obtain food, drink, clothing, and vehicles, garlands, scents, and ointments, bedding, housing, and lighting. He engages in misconduct by body, speech, and mind. In consequence, with the breakup of the body after death, he is reborn in the plane of misery, in a bad destination, in the lower world, in hell. It is in such a way that someone of the black class produces a black state. And how is it, Ananda, that someone of the black class produces a white state? Here someone has been reborn in a low family, a family of kandalas, hunters, bamboo workers, cart makers, or waste collectors, one that is poor with little food and drink, that subsists with difficulty, where food and clothing are obtained with difficulty, and he is ugly, unsightly, ill-proportioned, with much illness, blind, crippled, lame, or paralyzed. He does not obtain food, drink, clothing, and vehicles, garlands, scents, and ointments, bedding, housing, and lighting. He engages in wholesome conduct by body, speech, and mind. In consequence, with the breakup of the body after death, he is reborn in a good destination, in a heavenly world. It is in such a way that someone of the black class produces a white state. And how is it, Ananda, that someone of the black class produces nibbana, which is neither black nor white? Here someone has been reborn in a low family, a family of kandalas, hunters, bamboo workers, cart makers, or waste collectors, one that is poor with little food and drink, that subsists with difficulty, where food and clothing are obtained with difficulty, and he is ugly, unsightly, ill-proportioned, with much illness, blind, crippled, lame, or paralyzed. He does not obtain food, drink, clothing, and vehicles, garlands, scents, and ointments, bedding, housing, and lighting. Having shaved off his hair and beard, he puts on ochre robes and goes forth from the household life into homelessness. When he has thus gone forth, he abandons the 5 hindrances, defilements of the mind, things that weaken wisdom. And then, with his mind well established in the 4 foundations of mindfulness, he correctly develops the 7 factors of enlightenment and produces nibbana, which is neither black nor white. It is in such a way that someone of the black class produces nibbana, which is neither black nor white. And how is it, Ananda, that someone of the white class produces a black state? Here someone has been reborn in a high family, an affluent Katya family, an affluent Brahmin family, or an affluent householder family. One that is rich with great wealth and property, abundant gold and silver, abundant treasures and commodities, abundant wealth and grain. And he is handsome, attractive, graceful, possessing supreme beauty of complexion. He obtains food, drink, clothing, and vehicles, garlands, scents, and ointments, bedding, housing, and lighting. He engages in this conduct by body, speech, and mind. In consequence, with the breakup of the body after death, he is reborn in the plane of misery, in a bad destination, in the lower world, in hell. It is in such a way that someone of the white class produces a black state. And how is it, Ananda, that someone of the white class produces a white state? Here someone has been reborn in a high family, an affluent Katya family, an affluent Brahma family, or an affluent householder family. One that is rich with great wealth and property, abundant gold and silver, abundant treasures and commodities, abundant wealth and grain. And he is handsome, attractive, graceful, possessing supreme beauty of complexion. He obtains food, drink, clothing, and vehicles, garlands, scents, and ointments, bedding, housing, and lighting. He engages in wholesome conduct by body, speech, and mind. In consequence, with the breakup of the body after death, he is reborn in a good destination, in a heavenly world. It is in such a way that someone of the white class produces white state. And how is it, Ananda, that someone of the white class produces nibbana, which is neither black nor white? Here someone has been reborn in a high family, an affluent Katya family, an affluent Brahmin family, or an affluent householder family. One that is rich, with great wealth and property, abundant gold and silver, abundant treasures and commodities, abundant wealth and grain. And he is handsome, attractive, graceful, possessing supreme beauty of complexion. He obtains food, drink, clothing, and vehicles, garlands, scents, and ointments, bedding, housing, and lighting. Having shaved off his hair and beard, he puts on ochre robes and goes forth from the household life into homelessness. When he has thus gone forth, he abandons the 5 hindrances, defilements of the mind, things that weaken wisdom. And then, with his mind well established in the 4 foundations of mindfulness, he correctly develops the 7 factors of enlightenment and produces nibbana, which is neither black nor white. It is in such a way that someone of the white class produces nibbana, which is neither black nor white. These, Ananda, are the 6 classes.
All right. Thank you, Samantha. So yes, this is a discourse very similar to what you read last time, but and also the purpose is very similar too. To be able to help people to understand that no matter where you're born and what family you're born into, you can still attain enlightenment, because people were so stuck and so locked into the idea that if they were born in one type of family or another, they were destined to a certain type of life. And the Buddha is helping them to see, no, that's not the case, right? You can be born into a family that lacks resources, which is what he's talking about as a black case or a black class. And you can go deeper into that darkness, or you can improve, or you can actually get to enlightenment. Or you can be born into a family that's more affluent and you can go down deeper into the darkness. You can continue to go forward towards the light, or you can get to enlightenment. These are the options that people didn't think that they had those options during his lifetime. They thought they were kind of stuck. And he was helping them to see that it's possible for them to be able to get to enlightenment no matter where you were born and what you were experiencing. And that's the case today too, that there's nothing that's changed about these natural laws. They're the same natural laws. So no matter what you're born into in terms of a family, either affluent or lacking resources or having lots of resources, you can experience these same 6 aspects of what the Buddha is teaching here. So let me know what questions you guys have here on this discourse. You can put that into Facebook, YouTube, or in Zoom. Okay, I don't see any questions anywhere. So we go to our last discourse for today. Would somebody like to read this one? This is chapter 40. Okay, guys, all 3 volunteered again, so I'll just take the one at the top. Go ahead, Samantha.
I don't want to steal the thunder from anyone.
No, I don't. I've lost track of how many times each of you guys
Okay.
have
The
read.
arising of discontentedness. I have said, Ananda, that discontentedness is dependently arisen. Dependent on what? Dependent on contact. If one were to speak thus, one would be stating what has been said by me and would not misrepresent me with what is contrary to the truth. One would explain in accordance with the teachings, and no reasonable consequence of one's assertion would give ground for criticism. Therein, Ananda, is the case of those ascetics and Brahmins, advocates of Kamma, who maintain that discontentedness is created by oneself, that is conditioned by contact. Also, in the case of those ascetics and Brahmins, advocates of Kamma, who maintain that discontentedness is created by another, that too is conditioned by contact. Also, in the case of those ascetics and Brahmins, advocates of Kamma, who maintain that discontentedness is created both by oneself and by another, that too is conditioned by contact. Also, in the case of those ascetics and Brahmins, advocates of Kamma, who maintain that discontentedness has arisen randomly, being created neither by oneself or by another, that too is conditioned by contact.
Okay, thank you, Samantha. So here we've explored a discourse similar to this, that it's contact that leads to the triggering of a craving that's inside the mind. And where this is really helpful for you is that you know that at any point that you see discontentedness arising, whether it's conditioned pleasant feelings, painful feelings, neither painful nor pleasant, you can break contact, and that'll help protect your mind. And you definitely need to do that with the conditioned pleasant feelings. But even with painful feelings, if you're struggling there, it's better to break contact rather than allow you to experience some kind of unwise moral conduct. Because once you put out the unwise moral conduct, it's going to produce unwholesome results. So you'd like to break contact, and that's what's going to help you to be able to get to the point where you've extinguished all your craving, anger, and ignorance. So a discourse like this is helping you to see, yes, there's craving in the mind, but without contact through the six sense bases, it's not going to get triggered. So let me know what questions you guys have here. This is further helping you to be able to know what to do on a day-to-day basis in terms of extinguishing all these cravings, is that you need to break contact in certain situations, and that's what's going to help you to extinguish that. Remember, you can put your questions into Facebook, YouTube, or in Zoom. Okay, I don't see any questions anywhere. So once again, I'm going to end by saying thank you for your interest to learn and understand the teachings of the Buddha. Next week, we're going to be in the next few chapters. We have chapters 41 through 45, and we're going to be finished this book, moving into volume 7, which is all about breathing mindfulness meditation. And we'll explore that aspect of the teachings of the Buddha and a collection of teachings related to breathing mindfulness meditation. So if you'd like to finish up the chapters in this book, that's what we're going to be doing next week. And tomorrow in our group learning program, I'm going to be in volume 1. I'm going to be all the way in the back of the book of the frequently asked questions section. We're finishing up the group learning program. We're going to be restarting it from the very beginning on the 9th of August. So if you or other people would like to restart that program from the very beginning, that's an opportunity to be able to do that. So thank you all for joining. Thank you for reading, participating. Thank you for your questions. Just thank you for deciding that today is a day that you'd like to learn and practice the teachings of the Buddha, because it's helping you, it's helping those around you, and it's helping all of humanity. You're helping to give freedom of fear, hostility, and harm that would be caused to other beings. And now by you becoming a better and better individual, it's helping an immeasurable number of beings. So thank you for that. So perhaps we'll see you guys in a future class. Be well and take care. Sawadee krap.
Thank you for listening to this podcast. To provide support for this podcast, visit patreon.com/support Buddha. To access more teachings, visit buddhadailywisdom.com. There, you will discover a full range of courses, retreats, and online resources to assist you on the path to enlightenment. Remember to establish a daily, consistent meditation practice, along with learning and practicing these teachings. A well-developed meditation practice is the foundation in which to train the mind to attain enlightenment.